I think we're fine.
Explain where I've been, what I've been up to, and the direction of the channel, where it's going. Yeah, really difficult for me to sit in front of my desk today and to record this video without feeling some of the heaviness that is circulating around social media. I am, first and foremost, I just want to say this before I continue on with where I've been, but I am deeply grieved by what has happened over the past couple of days. Nothing to do with politics, and if you want to make a comment, that's fine. What
fucking
I
comments
am
are coming.
grieved about is the fact that children lost a father. Young children lost a father. And as a woman who also lost her father at a young age, there is nothing that anyone can ever really understand about a father being taken away from you at...
I told myself I wasn't going to pause this early on and just let it play through. But holy fucking shit, the grifting going on right now.
Such a young age and the impact that that's going to have on them. I'm hopeful that they have many people in their life that are going to step in, like myself, who had pseudo fathers who stepped in to take that role. But I wanted to have a moment of acknowledgement that children lost a father. And that's all I really want to say about that. So let me explain where I've been.
Yeah, tell us. Where you been for a fucking year?
About 6 months ago, I had experienced a point in my health that really was a tipping point that I couldn't really come back from. I was in the most excruciating pain that I have ever experienced in my life. And I had thought, doctors didn't know what it was, but we had kind of thought that it had something to do with my travels in Southeast Asia, that I had caught a parasite. So, I mean...
What the fuck? Do you understand what just happened right there? Do you understand what just happened? Somebody please in the comments contextualize these last 90 seconds for me. Please, do it.
Talk about, I've had more parasite tests done, colonoscopies, something to try and figure out what was happening with my gastrointestinal tract, because things were really rough. I would be sitting in front of client calls or on conference calls, basically just biding my time to get off of them because my pain level and my stomach and everything from here below, I couldn't even function. I was just surviving. Something like that happens and it calls into question everything, your whole life. What on earth am I supposed to do when I feel like this? Now, granted, this was the first time in my to the fact that you cannot see beyond a foot in front of your face when you... that it was my endometriosis because it didn't present like the first time that I had this surgery.
So that's our comeback. After, let's take a look here. After being gone for more than a year. Can you see that? There it is. A year ago, she posted about a video about nice guys. 3 days ago, she posted about Charlie Kirk. And now she's got some kind of revelation and she's going to come back and tell you about some parasite that she may or may not have. Listen, I didn't watch the whole fucking video because I'm too disgusted to do it. But now, in probably the largest national event, maybe world event, I don't know. I don't live in the Middle East. I don't live in Europe or South Africa or South America. But certainly, in the United States of America, this Charlie Kirk assassination is the biggest thing to fucking hit the country in 60 years. I'll give credit to 9/11, but 9/11 was not decisive. So, after more than a year of being offline, she's going to suddenly come back with, "I'm back," and tell you that she disappeared because of some ailment, parasite, that she got while she was world traveling. And people pay for this fucking shit. Listen, the next she comes back just 2 days later, 1 day ago, talking about intelligent men equals single. Listen, I'm fucking pissed. I am pissed that someone would use men's fears, their sorrow, and grief as a stage fucking prop to crawl back onto YouTube after disappearing for a year, just so she can start selling her shit again. For those of you who have been here before, thank you for coming back. And if you watch a little bit of this, and if you like my deep dives, then please stay tuned and buckle up, because this shit is going hard and it's going deep. Sarah Dawn Moore vanished for more than a year, as far as I can tell. Not a word, not a video on YouTube, not a single consistent moment of service, as far as I can tell, to the men that she claims to coach. She just told us that she was off for so long because she was world traveling and got some kind of parasite. Then suddenly, right after the Charlie Kirk incident, when men are hurting, when they're questioning faith, when they're raw and fucking vulnerable, she shows up out of nowhere after more than a year off of YouTube. That shit is not compassionate, and it's not fucking cool. It's not integrity. I would dare to say that it's a calculated play for attention and profit. Go back and watch her. I don't know. I'm going to do some editing here. I don't know if this is going to end up in my edit, but she says, "I'm back." She opens up by saying that I'm deeply grieved. Children lost a father. And as a woman who lost her own father at a young age. And what else happens next? She pivots straight into 10 minutes about herself. Parasites, colonoscopies, endometriosis, crying every day. Oh, shit. Makeup was too hard. Her boyfriend didn't take care of her. It was all so heavy. Look, health problems are real. I get it. And as a world and as a nation, we don't talk about all that shit enough. But to use it as content, and like, what seriously is going on here? And notice the move. Take a tragedy that has men healing, reeling, connecting anything they can to their personal pain. I'm hearing stories and talking to guys and watching videos, guys going to church for the first time in their life in 10, 15, 50 years. I, for myself, prayed for the first time in 15 years. She shows back up after a year off with a video, "I'm back," and then roll right into that comeback arc. It's not about the men who died, or the man who died. For her, it's about her. It's about how to rebrand herself in the middle of a fucking news cycle. Step 1. Acknowledge the tragedy, but only in a way that ties back to your own suffering. I lost parents at a young age as well. Step 2. Build intimacy through vulnerability. Oh, and we're going to get into that shit here in a couple of episodes. Overshare so that people feel close to you. Step 3, declare your return with a noble purpose. I've been through so much, I've been suffering, and now I'm back to guide you. Step 4, use that trust to funnel men into your $997 a year membership and a high-ticket coaching service that's conveniently non-refundable. Like I said, buckle the fuck up, because I think this is number 1 of about 8 episodes that I'm doing in this deep dive. And here's the part that makes me really sick. Men right now are grieving. They're trying to figure out what masculinity means, what their faith means. They're trying to figure out how to live with loss and disappointment, especially those of us who are single. We don't have somebody in our homes right now, in our beds, to talk to every night. It fucking hurt me. It hit me hard, believe me, it did. Those guys are not looking for a Broadway actress turned self-help guru to dump her fucking diary on them and then slide them into a funnel. The guys that are affected by Charlie Kirk, they're looking for steady hands. They need positive words. They need outcomes. They need something to look forward to. They're looking for honesty. And Sarah Dawn Moore gave them none of that. She gave them timing. Cold, hard, calculated, and disgusting timing. Listen, don't tell me that you care deeply about men when you disappeared for more than a year off of YouTube and then only crawled back the moment that you could piggyback on someone else's tragedy. Sarah, do not tell me that you're about service when your entire model is dangled in sex appeal and pseudo-psychology over men who already are vulnerable and then slapping them with $1,000 fee. Do not tell me that you're grieving when the first 10 minutes of your return video is one of the longest advertisements that I've ever seen about your own suffering and resilience, designed to make you look like a trustworthy guide. Let me be very fucking crystal clear. Sarah's comeback is convenient. It's not compassionate. And it's not for you. It's marketing at its most seductive level. It's not ministry. It's not faith. It's not revelation of what life really means to me, and I've had time to reflect, and now I'm back for you. It's a fucking grift. And men deserve to know the difference. Again, if you've been watching my dives, then you already know the pattern. No credentials, unbelievable fees, and a personal story that's repackaged as a sales hook. That's Sadia Khan all over again. And if you haven't seen it, go watch my deep dive on Sadia Khan. This is the same shit, just 3 weeks later. And people actually watch Sarah's videos. What are we looking at right here? 15,000 views on a video 3 days ago, and she hasn't posted in over a year. But I'll also say that this one's, it's a little bit different. Because it's timing. It's taking advantage of vulnerable men at a time probably when they're hurting most in their entire lives. So yeah, I'm pissed. Because men deserve to have better than to have their pain turned into a marketing opportunity. So do me a favor. Again, if you like my deep dives, stay tuned. I don't know how long this one's going to go on, but I'm going to come at this, like I said, really fucking hard. Sarah and others taking advantage of men during a national and worldwide tragedy, not fucking cool. So in part 2, what I'm going to do is I'm going to dive and dig into why Sarah even gets the platform that she does in the first place. And I'll tell you what, it's not about her credentials. So I actually had a little bit more of a hook there at the end, but come back for part 2 and we'll discuss why Sarah is relevant at all. So Sarah Dawn Moore's recent comeback, as I just discussed in part 1, her comeback wasn't timing. It wasn't done out of compassion. Again, as I said, it was cold, hard calculation based on grifting after the Charlie Kirk assassination. And if you haven't seen part 1, go back and watch it, which raises the question, how does someone with no credentials, no track record, and no professional service, no professional education, no training, how do they get men and suddenly appear and get more attention? after disappearing for an entire year. For the most part. Again, she hadn't posted in over a year. That's what we're going to pick up with here in part 2. It's the hot chick effect. And we're still just at the beginning of this deep dive, so I realize that I do have a tendency to ramble on, but please stick with me, because over the course of this full expose, I'll continue to break down Sarah Dawn Moore's whole gig wide open, from the hot chick effect that we'll do here in part 2, to the illusion of authority, lack of credentials, the $1,000 funnels, how sex is used as her hook, and the contradiction of teaching masculinity while embodying just the opposite, I think, along with the fake intimacy that she sells, and finally, the receipts versus the reality. So by the end of this full dive, I think that you'll see that the full grift for exactly what it is. So why does Sarah Dawn Moore get attention in the first place? It's not credentials. We'll look at that in an upcoming part. It's not training, as I mentioned. It's not years of experience in therapy or psychology training. I contend that it's, again, as I said, the hot chick effect. Scroll through Sarah's channel for 5 seconds. I'm looking up here right now, some of her content. Scroll through some of this for a few minutes, and what you'll find is thumbnails with cleavage pushed way out, way too low, low-cut tops, hair curled and flowing, and seductive smiles, and text that's slapped on like, women want these things, and she likes you, and nice guys always do these things, right? It's like a list, a checklist. If you just follow it, then she'll give you all of the answers. The body and the thumbnails sell what she believes is her authority. The look creates trust. And here's the deja vu again. I know that I mentioned this in part 1, but again, this is exactly what we saw, the same playbook from Sadia Khan. Sexy poses, endless glam shots, outrageous coaching fees, and not a credential in sight. So Sarah here, it's just a different name, but it's the same hustle. And these women, they all know exactly that if they package sexual appeal as coaching, many men, I would argue the weak ones, will hand over their trust and their money without even asking for evidence, qualifications, or proof of outcomes. Now listen, I believe that Sarah knows exactly what she's doing with her video images and her titles. In one thumbnail, it's bright red lipstick, and in another, it's a video in which she apparently conveniently forgets that she has 4 more buttons on her sweater. In fact, let's here take a look at one of these. Yep, that's one video. Another one. There's another video. You tell me this woman doesn't know what she's doing? Another one. Right? You get the idea. So, I think that if we strip away all those sexy visuals and slap the same titles on a thumbnail that's a video from a middle-aged woman in a polo shirt, guess what happens? The clicks would tank. They would just simply disappear. But because Sarah is an attractive and seductive woman, suddenly now the nice guy behaviors, they rack up 70,000 views. She has, I forget, 400,000 subscribers, something like it. It's a lot. And to guys, they hear 5 things that women wish men knew about sex, and it pulls in 53,000 views because sex sells, and her body is the billboard. Just like Sadia Khan, and I know I keep referencing that, but there are many others. I just keep saying Sadia because it was the most recent example that guys are familiar with right now. But it's countless others, and this works twofold. First, it pulls in the casual click, right? Guys that are going to watch this stuff right here just for the visual. They want to see a hot woman on a screen, and then what they do is they assume that she must know what guys want and what women want and how to put all of that together. And the second thing is it frames Sarah and also the others as an authority simply because they're attractive. And again, men think that if she looks like this and she's talking about what women desire, she must know better than I do. And that's the hot chick effect in full display and totally unashamed, I think. If you have a look at Sarah's site, you'll notice that she even doubles down. She has headlines like "Work with me directly," and memberships with languages like "Unlock your potential" and "Step into masculine polarity." Seriously? Sarah, you're going to tell me how to step into my masculine polarity and charge me $1,000, $997 to do it? She claims that she's going to help men build confidence that women crave, and all of it wrapped in glamour shots with her hair professionally styled. Jewelry is shining and polished, even positioning her arms and her posture. And it's all pulling men in without a hint of credentials. It's intimacy disguised as expertise with no diplomas, no certifications. Again, we'll get into this in just a little bit. It's just images that say, trust me because I'm sexy and I've got cleavage. And that's the manipulation that I really want to help guys understand. If guys can be distracted by cleavage or on a thumbnail or a smirk in front of instead of a credential, then they've already been seduced for the sales funnel. And it's good. Pardon me, it's good, believe me. It's well done. Let's say the loud part out loud, or the not often enough loud part out loud. Her clients are not buying information. What they're doing is buying the illusion that this beautiful woman, I think she's pretty. She's better than mid. Some of you, I know I'm going to get comments, this woman is ugly and everything. She's not an ugly woman. Right, but there's this illusion that this beautiful woman sees them and understands them, and she can help them to get other women just like her. It's the same way that many other clickbait female coaches dangle their curves and make just the right camera angles while charging men thousands of dollars. I mean, hell, Sarah here is, I think, $1,000 for her plan. Sadia was charging $6,000, if I understand correctly, for what they refer to often as insider secrets, right? So Sarah's running the same script, the same game as all of these other grifters and gurus. It's just a different sales funnel. They all rely on sex to masquerade as science, and that they know exactly what they're doing. They say that they know what men want, and then they package their own attraction as advice, and men stop asking questions often, too frequently, and they start handing over a week's worth of income. So when you hear Sarah and again the others, when they talk about wanting to heal the divide between men and women, and believe me, that's a sales pitch as well. Please understand that what's really happening is that is the divide. Oops. Let's go on to another one here. I'll give you a little Sarah show. Keep the show going, right? At least give you guys a chance to see what she's got to offer. Anyway, where was I? Oh, so the divide is the product, right? And the attraction is the product. And the sex appeal, that's their hook. So we exposed Sadia Khan. Look for my full deep dive onto Sadia and that debacle. But it's all the same formula. And now it's Sarah Dawn Moore standing in the same spotlight after her comeback just less than a week ago, and just a day or two after the Charlie Kirk assassination tragedy. As I mentioned in part one, I don't think it's anything more than a way to prey on men's vulnerability. It's an absolute grift. Sarah's back, everybody. She's here to help all of you guys. But really, it's all just different methods. It's all the same gift in different wrapping. So in part 3, what I'll do is I'm going to peel back the surface layer completely to have a much closer look into what Sarah Dawn Moore really has to offer men. Because once we remove Sarah's risque video titles and her thumbnails and the cleavage that they're all there to watch, what's left is really nothing but big claims with no qualifications. All right. Yeah, I think we're good. So, listen. I'm trying to get through this deep dive on Sarah Dawn Moore somewhat quickly, so I apologize. I'm not going to try. I'm going to try to not do a lot of editing just so I can get this content or this series out. It's going to be about 7 or 8 episodes, but so let's just dive in. If you haven't seen parts 1 and 2, I'll refer to them a little bit. I'll give you links in a pinned comment. But in part 2, I broke down the hot chick effect that rewards female dating and relationship grifters. I call them grifters. They're not coaches. They're not anything else. They're just grifters. And how their cleavage and their sexual tension create their illusion of authority. What I want to do right now is let's move into Sarah Dawn Brown's credentials, or in this case, the lack of them, as we continue this lengthy deep dive into Sarah's so-called expertise that she conveniently reignited hours after a national tragedy that left men questioning everything from their faith to their willingness to tolerate vile women. So listen, what I'm about to say is, I understand that it's going to come across as arrogant to some of you. But I will not apologize for what I'm about to say for these next couple of statements, because it's done for a purpose and for the sake of exposing Sarah and her fellow female relationship and coach gurus in those grifters. All right? So I'm going to make a comparison here real quick. I have 4 college degrees, an associate's degree in marketing, a bachelor's degree in psychology, a master's degree in psychology, and a doctorate degree in community psychology. You can see two of those diplomas right here. The other 2 are too higher for you to see. I wrote my master's thesis, and that resulted in 4 published peer-reviewed research articles. My doctoral dissertation, I wrote that. It took me more than 2 years from start to finish, just as one part of my completion of my doctoral requirements. I have 1 book that's already published, with another one coming soon. I've spent more than 2 decades studying research, methodology, writing and publishing and reading peer-reviewed research articles in research work. I've been on top of men's issues for more than 2 decades, personally and privately and professionally. And working in a career now that I've been in for about 10 years, working in an area in which men's areas are sometimes, but not often enough, addressed. But what I have never done is lean on vague and personal trauma work or healing from childhood patterns as qualifications to charge men $1,000 with no refund to teach them masculinity or to tell them that intelligence is keeping them single. Actually, now that I think about it, I'm going to put some overlays in here, all right? Because I don't want you just to take my word for it. I'm going to give you the overlays here. So Sarah Dawn Moore, though, her About Me page on her website says that she studied music in college. She says that she was apparently on her way to Broadway. However, she defines that. And then she moved into corporate work. Again, that's as much as we get. Her website, again, even further on, says that she has a background in recovery and trauma work. And I think I saw something about healing dependency of all kinds, especially in toxic relationships. And holy shit, fellas, if you're dealing with a woman that says she's dealt in trauma work and healing dependencies and toxic relationships, who the fuck is giving $1,000 to someone in which that is their selling point? That's their hook. That's their tagline. That's their I don't know what else that might be, but so let me ask you this. So what is that trauma work? What is it? From what I can tell, and listen, I've gotten a couple of comments on a couple of previous parts of this deep dive, and it has given me a little bit of insight. But from what I can tell, her trauma is losing her father at a young age. And is that hurtful? Yes, of course it is. It's even traumatic. I obviously traumatic. Yes, that's fine. But I think my professional, again, I am not a clinical psychologist, for those of you wondering. Again, I mentioned a moment ago my doctorate, my psychology doctorate degree is in community psychology, so I am not a clinical licensed psychologist. In fact, most of my interests are in behavioral and social psychology. So that's where my interests lie, and that's why I tend to quote most of the time behavioral and social psychology type topics and examples and research. Okay, but fine, Sarah, you had that traumatic experience, and that's totally legitimate. But I would say go do trauma work and healing with other kids and young adults who also lost a parent at a young age, right? What does that have to do, losing a parent at a young age, a father, have to do now with your trauma experience in helping men? Seriously, what the fuck? And also, to reinforce a comeback, again, Sarah's comeback, if you saw episode or parts 1 and 2, for Sarah to label her comeback last week, just within, again, hours, a day or two, as a way to connect with Charlie Kirk's children, because they also lost a father at a young age. Fuck off, Sarah. Fuck off. I would actually encourage, please, go watch her video. Go watch it. I will send the little, the very small content and subscriber list that I have. The viewers I do have, I'm learning. You're very dedicated. Thank you for being here. But if you're new here, listen, go watch Sarah's. I'm not going to put the link here or anything like that, but look up Sarah and watch her I'm Back video, in which she does say, hey, I also understand. I lost a father at a young age, and my heart goes out to Charlie's children. I don't even know if she actually mentions Charlie. I'm thinking Sarah is very, very smart, and she chooses her words very, very carefully. And I say that to say that she's, I think, bringing her comeback into a less than obvious grift, which I'm exposing here as it is. But anyway, go watch Sarah's video, send her some whatever views I can, and then come back for context, leave me a comment. But nothing I found from Sarah tells me that her trauma was diagnosed by clinicians. That'll be another topic for another day. I'm not entirely thrilled or convinced by modern day therapy, but I haven't found anything from Sarah that says that she was actually diagnosed with trauma. Is not a diagnosis. Let's just get that out of the way. But just because vague childhood pain, toxic relationships, subconscious beliefs, whatever. Listen. Let's compare that with everything that Sarah claims. Again, from what I can tell, I might have been missing something. This is a deep dive, so I did take my time, but I didn't make it my career for 2 weeks. But as far as I can tell, what Sarah claims is that she has over 10 years of coaching. Fine. Anybody could have said that. They have whatever. 500, more than 500 5-star reviews. Might be true, but we all know that, how easily those can be bought. Evolutionary psychology influence because she crafted Sorry, I'm going to lean into my notes right now. She crafted key takeaways from clinical trials in her Fortune 500 past. Do any of you understand what that means? If you have context, or any of you, and in fact, I've gotten a couple of comments in my videos about people, those of you viewers who are more familiar with Sarah than I am. Again, or at least have known of her content for longer than I have. I've done this deep dive, but I have not known about Sarah for probably more than a week since she made her return. But what the fuck does that mean? Apparently, and tell me if I'm wrong, evolutionary psychology influence. She crafted key takeaways from clinical trials in her Fortune 500 past. What does that mean? I don't even know what that means. So let's look at some contrast here. I've walked in rooms, I've led rooms with dissertation committees. I've defended my own. I've been on dissertation committees in which I approve or disapprove of other doctoral students' dissertations, which is they need the approval for them to meet the requirements of their doctoral requirements. I've taught psychology courses in multiple states, multiple universities. I've had my professors critique my publications. I've defended my work in states and research conferences all over the Midwest and the East Coast. All of my credentials are, again, I know some of you are going to say, listen, yeah, you're just talking about all of this, and we don't need to hear all about this. And believe me, it's going to be very rare in which I talk about my experience in my credentials, but this is for a point, right? My credentials are on paper. They're online. They're fully public. In fact, I made a point when I started this channel that I would make my my Facebook, my Instagram, my X account, I think my LinkedIn, all of that. I think probably all of them are still entirely public. Facebook I may have changed, but there's nothing that I have. None of my credentials am I hiding. Anything you want to find out about me? And I did this for a purpose because I knew when I started this channel and I wanted to start helping men that somebody at some point would do this shit to me. And this is exactly why we do not hide behind I experienced trauma. I help people do this. I have 500 people that I've helped. It's because those of us who want to actually help people, we make ourselves visible. We expose ourselves so that our credentials, our research, our publications are easily accessible. Again, whether it's through LinkedIn or anything else. Rate My Professor. Fuck, I think I have horrible ratings on Rate My Professor. But at least what that does is it indicates and it shows that I did in fact teach college psychology courses. Look for something like that from Sarah. What do you find? Again, you find this shit right here. Again, I'm looking it up here. I'll probably overlay a couple of things. But what Sarah right here is telling us is that she's got a proven 90-day system for becoming a desirable man. Proven. But in another section of her website, she says that it's non-refundable, which I believe, I'm not going to look it up, but go look it up yourself. It's bolded and italicized, non-refundable. And again, this is my contextual understanding of what she said. I'm not going to look it up, because if it doesn't work, it's because you're not working hard enough. And you're not following whatever her plan is, right? So she removes entire responsibility from herself. Yet here on this page that we're looking at right now, it's proven in 90 days that you will become a desirable man. So let's move on. So again, Sarah tells that she relies on her trauma work as a credential. But that could mean anything. Again, from my understanding, she lost her father at a very young age, and that's a terrible thing to happen. But for everyone else watching her videos, for anyone that might want to hire her, trauma work could mean anything. And again, I had to do a little bit of investigation and rely on some people leaving comments to a couple of the previous parts of this video to actually know what happened to Sarah. I think I learned that that the loss of her father was from a comment that somebody had posted. I don't know that I found it from her actual content herself, but my point is that trauma recovery could mean anything to anybody. And if they can't find out her background, if they don't spend 4 hours figuring out who this chick is, they're going to get suckered. I mean, trauma could mean anything to any unassuming viewer with a credit card, and that's what she's hoping. It could be divorce, growing up with absent parents, which those are topics I'm used to, or topics that I speak to a lot. Or it could be, being with a toxic partner, which apparently Sarah has stated has been her experience. But seriously, Sarah, who the fuck are you? And what do you fix? Maybe I'm speaking for myself right now, but for some of you who are still watching, let me just, if I could take this privilege and speak for you. We don't know what qualifies you to call yourself a trauma-based coach versus someone who went through hardship and then decided to sell it as coaching. Seriously, who the fuck are you? When I look at Sarah's principles, I'll call them principles, to me it comes around or across as just like, I don't know, a bunch of sound bites, I guess. It's like healing past unhealthy programming from childhood. I'm recovering from low self-esteem. Who the fuck among us has not done that? This actually makes me think. I'm going to go off topic here for just a moment, so please bear with me. Again, I realize, again, that I have a tendency to ramble on, but this is one of those things that women take normal, everyday experiences and turn them into psychological disorders. Healing from past unhealthy programming from childhood. First of all, thank you for the lingo speak. And then she's apparently also recovering from low self-esteem. Who among us has not done that? Again, she is taking, I will say at this point, she is taking those normal everyday experiences that all of us have. We're not fucking special. It's all of us. It's all of us have gone through that. Decoding belief systems, she says. And what she can help us with, guys, is regaining masculine and feminine polarity. This was a brief statement I made in part 2, but seriously, Sarah, you're gonna fucking tell me how to regain my masculine polarity today in 2025? So listen, it's all emotional territory in which people claim as trauma, but without having trained metrics or assessments or clinical oversight, what is Sarah doing here? So I want to be very fucking clear right now. I'm not saying that people should not talk about their pain or childhood patterns. Yes, all of that is very serious. And for some people, and even for myself at one point, it required a bit of clinical insight and speaking with professionals to help me work through that. Totally get it. That's fine. But when people are charging 4 or 5 figure service fees for memberships, and when they're presenting themselves as someone that men should trust with their insecurity or that person's credentials, We need more than a vague recovery plus trauma work means I can help you get a woman, which is basically is what Sarah is selling. And again, I'll say it again: men deserve a lot better than that. So, for men who are looking for real help, here's what real credentialing looks like. All right. So if you're out there looking for answers, looking for help, here's a couple of things I think that could help. The person that you're speaking with or might consider helping you, do they have, pardon me, published peer-reviewed research? That's a question you should ask them. Let them answer yes or no. And if they say yes, say, I would like a copy of that. I want to read that. Please give me your peer-reviewed published research, and let me make my decision after that. Do they have also degrees in psychology, psychiatry, or other clinical fields? Maybe something like social work might even be important for you. Ask them if they've had supervised clinical hours or licensing. Anybody with with more than a bachelor's degree, anyone with and I'll say probably specific within the clinical type degrees. Again, my degree is not clinical. Please let me make that very clear. I'm not a clinical psychologist. But again, whether it's a social worker, a licensed family and marriage therapist, anything like that, ask them, where did they do their clinical work? How many hours do they have? And where were they licensed? With all of that, let me just say that I would never do what Sarah is doing. And again, it's not just about Sarah, but we are diving into her in this series. I would never do any of the things that Sarah is doing, selling stuff without zero credentials, but rather, because I have a pretty face or a low top, and I, again, conveniently forgot to button the top of my sweater. Because what that does is all of that is it just turns human pain and human needs and their strive for improvement. It just turns all of that stuff into a product without the safety net of real qualifications and people that really have their best interest in help in mind. So, yes, this part 3 really actually kind of does hit home with me. What Sarah presents I would say, is drama. The suffering, her personal story, it gets turned into what she thinks is credibility. I would argue, again, it's turning most of our just like daily experiences into pathology. Experiencing, a perhaps personally traumatic event is normal, I'd say. We all do it. But that credibility is nothing more than built on vague drama, not verified training from Sarah or these other gurus. So at the end of the day, I would say that Sarah's credibility is not built on any type of evidence or proof. It's built on a grift, her sex appeal, as I mentioned in part 2, and the empathy performance. Again, very first beginning of, or in part 1, I've gone through this and I've had these bad experiences and everything, so I understand where you've been. It's an empathy grift. A tragic backstory, yeah, but also a very, very vague line about trauma work. The assumption that looking the part is the same as earning that part. So listen, in part 4, coming up next, what I'm going to do is I'll expose exactly what Sarah's $997 funnel costs men. Because from what I can tell, that's what she's charging. She has other plans, but her $997 funnel costs men. The memberships, the hyper discounted value, because of course, at $997, you're getting a great deal. And the non-refundable price that show that her work is not guidance, but a grift. So I'll see you next time. All right, my friends. So we've already torn into Sarah Dawn Moore's comeback timing that I, again, contend is nothing more than just a grift to take advantage of men's openness and vulnerability after the very unfortunate Charlie Kirk incident. We also broke down the hot chick effect right there. Trying to get a little bit better with my presentation without having to do so much editing, so thanks for bearing with me. We also broke down the hot chick effect in part 3, which was the one just previous to this, in which we exposed the missing credentials behind Sarah's self-proclaimed authority. And if you're just joining in this deep dive, I'll put those links in a pinned comment so they'll give you the full picture of how this grift is layered so far throughout this dive. Now what I want to do is talk about Sarah's price tag and why it's another one of the very, very many absolutely insulting pieces of her grift. So this woman is not just selling vague trauma coaching or dating coaching or find a relationship, find a woman for men at a measly 6-figure income level. She's charging men $997 a year for memberships. We'll get to more in just a moment. For memberships that she inflates to or says has a $19,200 value. But wait, there's more, right? If you want to get personal advice from her, it's going to cost, where is this one? Right here. It's going to cost $750 for a single session or $6,000 for 8 sessions. And if you do the math, you realize that you do not even get a fucking discount for buying in bulk. It's just overcommitment of your non-refundable income. So let me ask you this. How many of you that are watching earn $6,000 a month? That's $72,000 a year before taxes. And how many of you bring home 6 figures after taxes? Or I'm sorry, $6,000 after taxes. That equates to about a $90,000 to $100,000 income if you're earning or bringing home $6,000 a month. That's the level of what Sarah is charging. An entire month of take-home pay for someone that's making about $95,000 per year. And that's in the ballpark of about 20% of men in the United States. And at her rate of $750 per session, which I'm guessing is about an hour of her time, that comes to $30,000 for a 40-hour work week. Over the course of an entire year, it's $1,560,000 per year. All of that for a chick who failed making it to Broadway, gave up on that dream and settled for corporate work, and then gave up on that as well to charge men $750 an hour who were roped in by her cleavage-ridden videos. Yeah, and we'll bring up a lot more of that coming up here in part 5. Oh, and by the way, Sarah, thought this was cute. By the way, Sarah, it's data don't lie, not data doesn't lie. Data is plural, datum is singular. If you're going to try to earn over $1.5 million a year from guys who make 6 figures, the least you could do is speak and write in proper grammar. But I'll digress here. So look, these grifters' timing could not be worse in 2025. I mean, look, the economy is in the gutter for most people, for most of us, myself included. And for many of those who are not necessarily in the gutter, they're holding on to what they have because they're nervous about the national and global economy. For many people, their rent is unaffordable for half of the country. Home ownership, it's a joke, especially for millennials and Gen Z. Those of you who are not fortunate enough to buy a home, maybe 5 in the 5 to 7 year ago range or back in the 80s or 90s, you're fucked. Groceries, those are all up 30 to 40% in just couple of years, maybe 3 years. Families right now are being squeezed at the pump, at the store, and in their paychecks. Trying to settle down on the F-bombs here. But listen, they're getting downsized, laid off. We see them all the time. It's all over. People losing their jobs for one reason or another. AI is going to wipe out many of you in the next couple of years. Many people shoved into contract work and gig work in which competition is becoming ultra competitive. Men are barely keeping their financial heads above water, and now here comes Sarah. She wants them to fork over $1,000 for a glorified Facebook group or $6,000 for 8 hours of her time. I'm going to ask this rhetorical question of yourselves, and specifically, I would love to hear this answer from Sarah herself. Do you understand how tone deaf this is? It's not just selling a service. What it's doing is exploiting desperation. We've got men grieving, questioning themselves, their society, their place in society. Some are, again, barely paying rent. And here's Sarah, fresh off an absolutely disgusting and ill-timed comeback. Again, go back up to part 1. Sliding into algorithms again with a pitch that says, your masculinity is broken, but for a month's worth of your salary, I'll fix it. But just don't expect it to be a guaranteed outcome. So let's be clear about this membership. It's non-refundable and in a coaching space in which results can't be guaranteed. So even if you sign up and later realize that it's all smoke and mirrors and you want out, too fucking bad. Fuck off. Your money is gone. Her pocket is lined, and what happens is you are left with nothing but the same struggles that you started with. And let's be very clear that it's not about what Sarah Dawn Moore can give to men. It's about what she can take from them. She inflates the value of her service to a ridiculous... Here, I just found this insane while I was looking at this a little closer. She inflates the value of her ridiculous numbers, $5,997. So the $997 looks like an absolute bargain, right? But I mean, holy shit, look at this. She cannot even get her math straight. Please tell me if I'm misunderstanding this. Here's her fees straight off of her website, along with a calculator image that I put right alongside it. She lists a $19,200 value. But hold up, $997 per month for 12 months? It's not $5,997 or $19,200. It's $11,964. Seriously, what the hell are guys buying? And again, please tell me if I misunderstand this in any way. I'd love to apologize if I made a mistake, and I will offer a correction. Listen, all of this is, as you know, a sales tactic straight out of the coaching and grifting playbook. Overvalue a shitty service from an untrained and uneducated Broadway wannabe, drop that 50 to 70%, maybe 80%, to create the illusion of getting a deal, then create urgency, feed on people's vulnerability, and then lock those men in for non-refundable fees. And here's the fucking sick irony. Sorry, I'm trying to stop the F-bombs if I can. Here's the sick irony for unassuming guys. The very men that Sarah is targeting are the ones, I'm guessing, who could least afford it. It's probably the guys who are putting this on their nearly maxed out credit cards. I'm guessing, again, a lot of young guys who are already drowning in debt, having a hard time paying their bills. Maybe it's middle-aged men that are hit with layoffs and child support, maybe some alimony thrown in. Maybe it's dudes that are fighting to scrape by while inflation is eating their wallets alive. I have a very good assumption that these men are not hedge fund managers that are looking for a wife. The people that are signing up for this are likely vulnerable men, perhaps even desperate, and she's dangling a $6,000 $1,000 fee in front of their pain. Hell, listen, the guys who have $6,000 just laying around, sitting around with nothing to do, those are the guys who don't need Sarah to help them with their masculinity or their love life. They already have the income and the exposable finances, expendable incomes, to finance their masculinity and their relationship for themselves. Guys with that much money laying around with nothing to do, that's all they need to get the women that they want. So while the rest of the world's men are struggling to cover their rent, to maybe keep their lights on, or listen, even to splurge on the occasional T-bone steaks at Winn-Dixie, Sarah Dawn Moore has the has the audacity to call her funnel a safe haven. Her services are safe for men. My question is, safe for who? Seriously, Sarah, we all want to know. Because it sure is not for the men that you're draining anywhere from $6,000, maybe $997, whatever it is. Those men are not safe in this funnel. But that's the price of desire. It's not just the literal non-refundable prices, but the emotional cost of trusting someone who doesn't care if you can afford it, doesn't care if you're struggling, doesn't care if you're downsized or on the verge of bankrupt, only that your credit card does not get declined at checkout. I mean, listen, I could go on forever, but I'll leave part 4 at that. So far in this lengthy deep dive, and I got just a couple more, so again, please stay with me. I know I do have a tendency to ramble on, but this topic just fascinates me. But so far, we've exposed Sarah's disgusting timing of her comeback. Oh, here's another little visual right here that I forgot. We've exposed her disgusting comeback and the hollowness of her qualifications, along with the tone-deaf expectation of her fees. And coming in part 5, let's just leave this one right here. Coming in part 5, we'll dive even deeper into the promiscuity of Sarah's content. And we talked about it a little bit here in part 2. I'm going to circle back and get into that even just a little bit more detail. Because that's where she offers her so-called insider knowledge that attracts men. So next, it's all how Sarah dresses up her grift with shocking content, because the sales pitch always circles back to the same bait: sex. Thanks. I'll see you soon. How many men out there think they're being coached when really they're just paying to hear a pretty woman whisper about sex? By now, through this dive, you've seen the thumbnails and the patterns. And Sarah Dawn Moore does not just make content about relationships. She sells men the fantasy of intimacy by wrapping it up in sex talk. And that's the hook for her coaching service. Scroll through Sarah's catalog, her videos online here on YouTube, and the sex hook just jumps out immediately, with titles like Make Her Wet, How to Fix a Sexless Marriage, Spice Up Your Sex Life Fast. Over and over, it's the promise of sex, not stability. And of course it works, because for a lot of men today, sex is not just rare. It may be gone entirely. Study after study shows that younger men are having less sex than any generation before them. Many under 30 have not had sex in the past year, and plenty have not had sex at all. Believe me, I understand that this has to be part of her knowledge as being in her business, right? Sarah knows this, and she builds her entire model on it. Picture a guy who's unemployed, maybe stressed out about his rent. He hasn't been touched by a woman, hasn't touched a woman in years, and then finds a video like this of a woman like her looking straight into the camera, talking about what women crave in bed. And at that moment, it does not matter whether she's recycling or quoting Cosmo advice columns or making it all up. What matters in that moment, for those 10 minutes, is that he gets to hear something, anything, from a woman who looks like that. That's not coaching or educated relationship instruction, in my opinion. That's reframing loneliness and selling it back to men as help or empowerment. The real cost of programs like Sarah's is not just the $997 for online group sessions or $750 for hourly private sessions. It's the hope that drains guys. Because once you convince a man that sex talk is the same as intimacy, or masculinity for that matter, he starts mistaking thumbnails and parasocial confessions for connection. He starts thinking that he's onto something legitimate, when in reality, he's just buying the entire illusion. And Sarah plays this role perfectly. As I said before, she's good at what she does. Coach, confidant, and fantasy all rolled up into one, but always filtered through sex in one way or another. Her thumbnails do not say things like better conflict resolution or how to build stability in marriage. They say way more sex, spice up your bedroom, secrets that make her blush. And look at some of these images here. Sex is the entry point. Intimacy is the upsell, and what men actually walk away with, I don't think, is more closeness. It's dependency. And again, this is not new either. Sadia Khan was exposed for the same exact stunt that many of you remember or learned about from a few weeks ago. Sexy thumbnails, promises of secrets, no real credentials, and a business model built on men's hunger for validation. Coaches like these women, they trade on the same formula. Attract desperate men, dangle the idea of sexual access, and then call it empowerment. But listen, if we strip all of that away, the lipstick, the shots of women in lingerie in the thumbnails, the winks into the camera, and the promises of more and better sex, do you really think hundreds of thousands of men would be showing up and clicking for a lecture on communication theory? Or is it more obvious that what keeps them there is the fantasy that a woman like this is speaking directly to them about desire and what women want? I don't think that any of this is about helping men build strength, confidence, or healthier relationships. It's sex ed that's exploiting the gap between what men most want and what they least get. And every time a man clicks, she wins. So when men buy into this model, they're not learning intimacy or masculinity, which we'll get to here in just a moment. And that exposes the real question, the real contradiction that we need to face. How does someone who trades almost entirely on roping men in with topics of sex teach men authority and masculinity? Because that's where we're going, that's where we're headed in part 6. This is not a rhetorical question. I am genuinely interested in how men would answer it. How can it possibly be masculine to pay a woman to tell you how to live your life, what to wear, or even how much vulnerability to express, and to whom? Please tell me if I'm wrong, but I would much rather have someone help me to be the best man that I can and want to be, and be confident in myself, rather than tell me how to change and mold myself to someone else's perception of what they believe will make them attractive to women. If women like me, great. If not, then it's just as well, because I am not going to be someone that I don't want to be just to get laid. This is the contradiction of Sarah Dawn Moore's coaching service and many others like her. That really hits home with me and is almost never understood by a lot of men. They think that because they're making some type of step toward masculinity, that no step can be a bad step, right? But what she's doing is making her living teaching men how to be masculine while embodying absolutely no experience. She's telling men what she thinks is masculine and what they need to do to express that to women. She's feminist, she's feminized, she's feminine, she's sexualized, she's selling intimacy through a screen. Yet somehow, she's the one handing out masculinity advice, and men are paying for it, and a lot of money at that. For those of you just joining us in this deep dive, here's a quick recap. We've already exposed the very suspicious timing of Sarah Dawn Moore's comeback a week ago. We talked about the hot chick effect, her missing credentials, the extremely high price tag of her services, and then showed how she baits men in with desire while packaging it as authority. I'll pin those links here in a comment, but now here in part 6, it's time to hit one of my favorite parts of this deep dive, the paradox of how a woman who embodies the opposite of masculinity is somehow teaching men what masculinity is and what people perceive it to be. So let's be honest here. It's not confident, masculine, grounded men who are funding women's coaching platforms. Do I believe that Sarah's subscribers and clients need help to find their masculinity and to express it? Absolutely, I do think that. Because strong masculine men don't hand over their paychecks to Broadway wannabes with no formal education or training in a low-cut sweater talking about sex on YouTube. They don't line up to spend $997 on recycled advice every week when they already know how to build their lives through discipline, risk, and sacrifice. No, the people who keep Sarah Dawn Moore in business are the weak ones, the lonely and vulnerable ones. It's the men who are already questioning themselves and already doubting their value. Maybe they're already broke and just tired and exhausted. And instead of lifting them up, her content just makes them more weak and more dependent, I think. Think about this for just a moment. A guy struggling to pay rent, watching grocery prices jump 40% in 3 years, maybe working 2 jobs or a side gig just to stay afloat, and he's wiring cash to somebody he has never met and has never lived his reality. Has Sarah ever walked into a divorce court and had her children ripped away from her? Has she ever paid for 3 dinner dates in a week? Chasing men who don't respect her, only to go home more alone and more broke than when she woke up that morning? I'd be shocked if she's experienced any of that. But those are the men that are paying her bills. Let me peel this back for just a little bit more, because this is where I think the core of the paradox is. Masculinity is not learned from a woman's validation or her telling him how he should be living his life. In fact, that is the opposite. It's not unlocked through the approval of someone who doesn't even live under the same pressures and circumstances. Masculinity often is built in silence, in sacrifice, sometimes reflective loss, and in risk, and long-term self-reflection. Yet Sarah sells the exact opposite. She says, if you pay me, if you listen to me and what I tell you to do, if you let me define what masculinity means for myself and other women, then you'll finally become the man that women want. And my argument is that none of this is confidence, but rather ill-guided and even detrimental advice. Because it's disguised as empowerment. And for a lot of guys, it takes them way too long to realize it. Every dollar that a man hands her is not proof that he's becoming stronger. Just because he's doing something doesn't mean he's improving. I think that it's evidence that he's actually outsourcing his masculinity to a woman who profits from keeping him hooked. So ask yourself this. What kind of men are most likely to be paying a woman online $997 for weekly group video calls? It's not the ones who are leading families, building businesses, taking responsibility for their own growth. No, it's the men who already feel powerless. It's the ones who are already thinking or believing that they're failing. The men who hope that just hearing a beautiful woman talk to them, even through a screen, will give them back or even help them find their edge in the first place. But instead of strength, they walk away weaker, more broke, and more misled. And that's why this paradox is so dangerous. Sarah Dawn Moore and the others, they're not selling or teaching masculinity. They're actively undermining it. They're telling men that they're not enough, and then they're selling them the promise of being enough according to their untrained and unexperienced opinions, but only if they keep paying, only if they keep themselves in that funnel, and only if they keep watching or clicking and feeding the very system that thrives on their insecurity. So the next question is, if men keep getting weaker the more they buy into all of this, what is she really selling? And the answer to that is coming in part 7. Why do men keep handing money to women who have never lived in a man's reality? In part 5 of this deep dive, we looked at how Sarah Dawn Moore sells sex as intimacy as part of her funnel. And in part 6, we dug into the contradiction of a woman dictating masculinity and defining it while embodying the opposite polarity. Now, this is the final part to close out the female masculinity coach deep dive, and we're breaking down the final piece of this entire illusion. How Sarah positions herself as a female insider, the one who claims to let you in on women's secrets, when really it's just, I think, another performance to pull men in deeper into her funnel and to get their commitment. This is the part I think that a lot of guys miss, or maybe they just don't want to admit it. Sarah Dawn Moore's real product isn't masculinity coaching, and it's not even about sex education or helping them to get laid. I think that her real product is the illusion of insider knowledge and the understanding of the psychology of women by way of sharing personal information and anecdotal information. Watch Sarah's videos, and it's pretty obvious in many of them. The eye contact with the camera, warm smiles, even personal confessions about, most recently, surgeries, health struggles, emotional pain. Specifically in her I'm Back video last week, she did not lead with new research findings or breakthroughs in understanding relationships or masculinity or men's experiences. She led with the perceived vulnerability, and comments just poured in as people validated her extended chronic health problems. Let me tie this back for just a moment into women, or how can women teach men masculinity? Is that a masculine thing? Is that something that a masculine person would do? Get on YouTube and talk for 10 minutes about their health problems over the past 12 or 24 months? Yeah, that's exactly what she did. And then is going to teach men how to be masculine. And that's what I mean when I said, I probably should have mentioned this in the previous video. That's a feminine trait. Getting online and gushing out your health history and your chronic health issues for validation. That is not a masculine thing to do. So my question, I'll refer back to part 6, is how are you going to teach men to be masculine when you don't even do it or understand it yourself? So it's videos like those in which Sarah is not just giving advice. She's letting viewers into her circle. And for men who have not heard kindness from a woman in months, maybe they haven't been on a real date in years, or they've been lacking admiration since as long as they can remember, a lot of that is going to feel priceless. What happens is she becomes the female insider, right? The woman who finally explains how women think, what women want, and the way that men should act, right, in order to attract those women. She plays translator, confidant, and friend, and once you believe all of that, you are hooked. So let's get brutally honest as we start to wrap up this entire full dive. That intimacy in Sarah's content is not just an update to explain what she's been up to. She pairs it with the plugs and mentions of her services. And people come for that parasocial bond, right? They follow because she looked them in the eye through a thumbnail and she smiled. And they stay because she disclosed on camera and they felt protective of her. They felt as if they were reinforcing her health issues, wishing her well. And that's the exact reason that men who sign up for these programs keep clicking and paying, even when nothing in their lives actually changes. Look, this is not new. Again, we'll go back to Sadia Khan, building trust through soft tones and sexual thumbnails, maybe some confessional moments here and there. Again, anecdotal stories. What it really is just pretending to pull back the curtain on what women really think, and then rebranding it as being a rare female who tells the truth. You're not going to get this from anyone else. And then monetize that bond. Different woman, same grift. We've seen it over and over. But here's what we really ultimately need to expose. When Sarah says things like, "We're in this together," or "I'm just being honest with you," she's not talking to men, she's talking to the market. She's strengthening that illusion that you and her have, right? That perceived bond through your screens. She's telling you that she's the one woman who really understands you and that her advice is coming from care rather than profit. But the reality is very simple. She's just a performer. I mean, hell, she's a theater kid. She's selling the feeling of closeness, not the closeness itself. So if you made it this far, all the way through this deep dive, believe me, I really appreciate you sticking with me. Thank you very much. These videos are not easy to make. They're time consuming and inconvenient. But I do it because I love it, and I really have a lot of content that I want to share with men to help them understand how society is taking advantage of them. And I think that men deserve a lot better than being sold illusions like Sarah and all of the other grifters. So thanks for watching. Thanks for supporting the channel, and I'll see you in the next dive.